I would like to discuss with you a topic, an interesting topic, and how to deal with it, and that's the how to deal with hydrostat relief valves, especially in a large section of piping. Over at my place, my trunk lines, my liquid and vapor trunk lines are rather large. Even if yours aren't the same size as the ones that I have, whenever you have a large section of piping, one of the problems or risks we run into when we install either a hydrostat, liquid hydrostat valves, or if we have a large vapor trunk line, large section of vapor piping, and you want to install a vapor pressure relief, problem is what if those rascals pop? They're supposed to pop, relieve, drop below their pressure threshold, and reseat. Well, if they do, we're still required to replace them. It's just that we now have more time. But they don't always reseat. They don't always cooperate the way we think they should. Because one of the things that's easy to do, it's easy to forget that once every 10 years you should replace all of your hydrostats. And it's not so bad if all you have is a piece of 3-inch pipe or 4-inch pipe and you got a section that's, anywhere from 3 to 20 feet long. Well, that's not quite so bad. And if you schedule the maintenance, it's usually a way to figure out how to mostly drain that section of pipe before you actually go to remove and replace that hydrostat. Well, I want to read a section to you out of NFPA 58, the 2020 version addressing hydrostats. And the code acknowledges that it is easier, it's better, it's far more user-friendly to have a shutoff valve between your piping and your hydrostat. Just in the past, the code has always said that they don't want you to install a valve between the two because they don't want anybody throttling down or completely isolating the safety from the actual piece of equipment it's designed to replace. So I'll share here, it's 6.15 and 6.15.1 and .2. It says a hydrostatic relief valve or device providing pressure relieving protection shall be installed in each section of piping and hose in which liquid LP gas can be trapped between valves. And .1, shut-off valves that could isolate the hydrostatic relief or devices from the piping or hose shall not be installed. .2, it shall be permitted to install a 3-way isolation valve rated for at least 500 psi working pressure connected to 2 hydrostat relief valves. Well, in the past, one of the easiest 3-way valves for us to come across from most distributors is a Apollo version. It's a nice bronze one. Comes in either 3/8, ½ inch, or 3/4 inch. And the bronze body of the valve is really nice. Its weak point is that brass nut that's in there. I've used them in the past. Every one eventually leaks because that brass will get a hairline split in it and then it'll leak. If Apollo could come up with some way to do a hardened stainless steel, hardened carbon steel, or a bronze nut, I'm sure the problem would just disappear. They always will blame it on the fact that you tighten it down too tight. Well, hell, how do you know? I mean, you got to draw it down tight enough to where it's solid and it won't leak. And to me, it's just a way to blame somebody for a design flaw. You shop around. And I went on Grainger, and so I found the item, the valve, on Grainger and ordered it through Imperial Supplies. So again, talking through, it pays to have a good rapport with your salesman. And once again, I am grateful to my sales rep, Ben Hendrickson, as he didn't know I needed something specific. I needed something that would actually mimic the function of the Apollo valve, because the Apollo valve was great. It did everything I wanted the way I wanted. Because not only do I need a three-way valve, I need a locking handle three-way valve, and the Apollo did it, except for that, you know, that design flaw that I don't want. It's a 3/4 inch version. They come in different, but the connections coming up off of my trunk lines are all 3/4 of an inch. So I just went with the 3/4 inch. I also run larger than average hydrostat reliefs because of the size of my trunk lines. Now my smaller piping, I run 1/4 inch hydrostats. And the code also says that hydrostats are to be between 400 and 500 PSI on their setting. They don't specify what their start to discharge is, which is also something important to consider when you pick any pressure relief or hydrostat. What is your start to discharge? Because it does matter. And it can, let me rephrase that, it can matter depending on the application in which you use it. So just keep that in mind. And I'll show you here of what I've got. This one here is set up for the small 1/4 inch. And because it's 3/4 inch, I just drop a 3/4 by 1/4 bushing, and then just a little 1/4 inch hydrostat. I prefer either the Marshall or Rego. They're my favorite ones. Marshall has a great variety, and when it comes to 3/4 inch, Marshall's the only one I use. And then it's got this arrow to show you which one. So the whole point is when you do it, this one here, according to the arrow, is in service. This one's just dead, does nothing. If this were to pop, then you just lift up your locking handle, rotate it 1/4 of a turn. Now, that's not straight. Now this one's dead and this one's active, so now I can take my time and either go order a replacement if I don't have it, or I just take my time at my leisure and I go and replace this one. And now this one is always protecting my system. And the nice thing about it is that it's got a locking handle. What I do also for my system to try to just be not so much tampering, but if somebody were to walk by this and a piece of clothing were to hook it, I don't want this handle being moved. Even though it's got this little locking collar, it can still move. So what I do, and it may be redundant, but it gives me peace of mind, so I do it. I just take a little spring pin like that. I just put it in the hole, and then lock it. Prevents that collar from coming up, and it's going to keep it in the position that I want. And then it doesn't matter if it's ice, if this, if there's snow, ice, frost, whatever. I don't have a lock to remove. I don't have a bolt to remove. I don't need any tools. All I got to do is relieve the spring, pull this out, and then I can flip it over to where I want. That's how I deal with that. And then here's the one for my 3/4 inch hydrostats. And on my vapor, I run 3/4 inch vapor pressure relief. These come in a couple different models. This is a standard L. L as in Larry. Just a standard L. So that it's all it can do. This is my always in. So when I take and I move my arrows, that's all I do. I keep, this always will stay my inlet, and then I just pick whichever port I want to be active. Something, just throwing it out there, something for you maybe to consider. Maybe this would work for you. Maybe this would help you out. Maybe this would give you another option. A friend of mine sent me a picture. I've only had one flex pipe go bad. All it did was it ripped the stainless steel wrap that goes around on the outside. I was going out and I had walked around my system And I was just, look, you do that every day anyway. You always go and we always, every time you go past a flex pipe, you just look at it. That's just standard. It's what we do. We just always look at it. I had walked by it and everything was good. I had come back around the other side of my pumping area and I was like 20, 30 feet away and I heard a pop, really loud pop. So I stopped, turned around. First, I didn't see anything. I go back, and that outside stainless steel wrap had just split wide open. The stainless steel corrugated in the center bulged out, but it was still solid. And then you're sitting back, you're like, okay, now what? And it took me, so I had to go isolate that and fix it. Well, a friend of mine sent me a picture. He left his facility. Well, actually, he shares a facility with another company, and this other company has a separate piping system from his. And when he left that night, the system was great. He comes back the next morning, does his morning inspection, and he notices something's not right, so he goes and investigates, and a 4-inch flex pipe during the night ripped from end to end. They investigated and come to find out the original company that did the original piping had a 60, 70 foot long length run of pipe, something like that, between two shutoff valves, and didn't install a single hydrostat. And it's just one of those things. You would think that it would take high pressure, high temperature. This all happened in it's either late fall or early winter. So it wasn't like there was an ungodly temperature out there. Things happen. Things can happen. And that's why we have hydrostats. That's why we install them. And if you have a larger section of pipe that you would determine would be very difficult, if not impossible, to safely drain to replace a hydrostat or a pressure relief, there's a nice option for you. On the Imperial website, let's see, the Granger part number is 1, J as in Jack, C as in Charlie, L as in Larry 1. And on the Imperial website, the part number is 927723-8. Less than $200 per valve. It's an option. It's rated at 1,000 PSI, so we exceed the code. It's got, to me, it looks like it's got everything I want. So that's what I'm installing. Just another option, something to consider. Thank you.